Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hi, Connor. Yay!
Looks like we're still trickling in.
I can't hear you, Connor. I see you.
Can't hear me?
Yeah, you're not on mute. Am I? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, but maybe you have your microphone off. Your Zoom microphone is on, but I'm not hearing you.
Can you hear me, Laura?
How about now?
She can't hear me either. She might need to turn her volume up.
But you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Looking for my.
I'll message her.
Oh, okay. It's a little hard to do on my tablet. How you doing, Ash?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Hot.
So I'm still not hearing you, but I'm going to call Ed Sanders because I put in a call to everybody, but I couldn't reach Ed. So I'll just call Ed and see. Oops.
I don't know if she saw that. I think she may have not been looking at the right time. Oh, there we go.
There it goes.
Oh, okay. You're right. There's my volume. I can hear.
Oh, that better? Better now?
It was me. I'm saying to Connor, I couldn't hear him. It was me. It was my problem.
Hello.
Hi there. Hi. This is Laura Ricky. I was hoping Ed would be around.
Yes. Hold on, Laura.
How are you doing?
I'm okay. How are you?
Yay. I'm trying to keep cool. I'm trying to keep safe.
Okay. Okay.
Hi there. Thanks.
Hello.
Hey there, Ed. We have a meeting at 6:30. I think there was some confusion about the time. I didn't know if you're able to join.
It's like 6:30. So I'm getting ready. I have it all ready to go.
Yay. All righty. We'll see you in a minute.
All right.
Bye. So I just left a voicemail. Oh, there's David Lax. I left a. Now, are you? Am I still not hearing you?
I believe you can hear me.
Yeah,
I was
I
just
can hear.
giving Dave a wave.
So
Hey,
yay.
little wavy Davy.
And we have Jeff Collins. Ed is about to join us. Dave Menzies, and now Michael will not be here. Dave Menzies will be here, but he has something personal to do at 7. So he may be able to come back after that, but we don't know. Anyway, so I'll just get roll call while we're here. We have Connor, we have Jeff, but we know Ed is about to join, so we'll hang out for a minute for Ed. And we have our guest is David Lax. And David, I don't know if we've actually met, but very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. How are you?
Good. I think I've seen you. I'm good. I'm trying to keep cool and trying to stay alive. That's how I'm doing. So how are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Yay. So I guess in your business, because you're doing photography, so you probably can social distance okay, although I don't know whether the demand has changed with all this going on, but
Tremendously.
has it? Yeah.
Yeah. Like
People are just
like to zero.
Oh dear. Oh dear. Yeah. Well, that sucks.
Yeah, with the without events, it's imagine a big part of your industry.
Oh, right. Right. Now, Jeff, you're on mute. I don't know whether you've been unmuted by the host or whether, I don't know if Ashley needs to unmute. Oh, there you go.
I just muted myself. I'm good.
Yay. Okay. All righty. So we may, hopefully we get Ed and hopefully we get David. Ed said he's coming. So we'll just give him a moment. Although we have a quorum and we did say that 3 people could do some things. So while we're waiting, I did only an hour ago, but I did send out the minutes and the agenda So we have, with three of us, we can approve the minutes in the agenda if we choose. I can put it on the screen if you'd like to see it.
Oh, that's okay. I've got it pulled up here.
Okay. There's Ed. Welcome, Ed. So we think we're going to have David Menzies, but if we did, it would only be till 7 o'clock. But I thought he was going to be here until then. So anyway, well, we'll get right into, since we have David, we'll get right into David Lax. Yeah, because we still have to do agenda and minutes, and we have other things on the agenda to talk about. But we have David. So Connor, I know you had a vision of, it was about trees and drone photography and how David could help. So why don't I let you, Connor, give a lead into, you know, I don't want to overstep. I don't want to step on your toes to say why David's here. I think you had
no,
the vision.
Yeah, no worries. Just to touch on the ones and twos of it really quickly, that there had been and continues to be a problem with tree cutting in the scenic overlay, particularly, though it's not limited to just that. I actually got a call from Linda Lover a night or two ago saying that she believes there's some unpermitted tree cutting going on in her backyard, which is just off of Glasgow. So the short of it is, one of the things that makes it really hard for us to hold applicants in the planning phase to a standard is not having a reasonable and accurate assessment of the before and after when it comes to the construction and the works that has been done. There's often times when we go to a site for somewhere that is planning to do outdoor work, there is a phase where we will do a preliminary site plan review. We walk the property, we look and see what the area of disturbance is, but it's relatively it's not very high tech, let's put it that way.
Right.
And the reason Dave is here and the reason I've invited him to speak to us is because he has a lot of experience as a drone photographer, and I believe that has also bled over into all types of real estate work, photographing properties. So the idea and the goal here is to get an idea of what it would look like if we were to include in our site plan review on a case-by-case basis an escrow or whatever it would take to hire someone like Dave to do a before and after assessment of the work that has been done. So where I'd like to open the first question for Dave is a sort of two-parter. If you could tell me a little bit about a little bit about drone photography, what your general experience is and what your going rate is, that would be my opening question. Just your
Well, as I said, if you have to ask, you can't afford it, but you can. You have to be an FAA certified pilot to do any commercial work. I do extensive work with real estate. Specifically, I do a lot of work with Sotheby's real estate and shoot a lot of them mountain estates. So I'm used to doing rugged terrain. And I do video and photography and help showcase different places so people can see if they want to buy a particular property. The range of cost varies because of the level of production I do with real estate. In real estate, there might be indoor and outdoor shooting. There might be voiceovers. There could be overlays. There could be all kinds of things. So the prices vary a lot, from several $100s and up.
So if I could then narrow the focus a little bit, in the case of the planning board particularly, and these site plan reviews where we go to the location and we're looking at these properties, a lot of times there is already an existing structure there that they want to, in so many words, expand. And so the idea would be we would want to get at least 2 groups of photographs. In terms of production and any after shooting production that would go into it, it's really just about getting as high a level of clarity in each photo as possible, so they're as visually accurate as they can. It's not so much of a touch up, but I wouldn't know, if that's.
So let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Are you looking only at photography versus video?
More than likely, yes, because here are the 2 things in particular that I could see really being worked, the 2 types of photograph that we would want really worked into each case file. And that is an aerial shot that encompasses the area of disturbance. So that would be a bird's eye view style shot. And the second shot could, or maybe doesn't have to be done with a drone, depending, again, like on terrain, which would be an on the ground, maybe, well, definitely outside, but an on the ground shot that would maybe encompass a somewhat 360-degree view from what I would consider the center of the area of disturbance, to get an idea of what the density is.
Like a
At
panorama.
least. Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't have to be, a high-tech 360-degree shot. It could be done in 4 to 8 shots, I'm sure.
I understand. I can shoot at 20 megapixels to be specific, which is a very clear, clean shot if you know photography. And I can shoot, you had asked me before about restrictions on height. I can fly 400 feet above ground level. That's whether I'm in the valley or up on a mountain. Once I take off, that's 0, and I can go 400 feet above that. If there is a structure, like a fire tower, I can fly above the fire tower as long as I'm within 400 feet of the fire tower or structure that's higher than the 400-foot ground level.
All right, so just to be clear,
that takes care of all of our trees here. There's no trees here that are that high. So I'm able to go above the canopy and take the shots that you're talking about, the bird's eye view shots, both below, because it's an articulated camera. I could take a shot straight down from a height, or I can go on any angle to show where it's looking.
Wonderful. And as a follow-up to that, so if we, so you can fly 400 feet above ground or an existing structure.
Correct.
That is on the ground. So that would be 400 feet. Yeah. Sorry, Ed?
Yeah, are we talking about a drone or an airplane?
A drone.
Okay, thank you.
Unmanned.
And so that would mean that if we have a house that is 30 feet tall, you could fly next to that house, just arbitrarily speaking, you could fly next to that house, 50 feet from that house, 400 from the ground, but if you're right above that house from the ground, technically speaking, you're going 430 feet. Would be the idea.
400 feet from the ground. The house doesn't really count as a structure.
You're saying only if you have a structure that the structure itself is over 400 feet, then you have some latitude of where you can be. But if the structure is a regular building,
if it's a building, it's 400 feet from the ground. That's plenty high to see things.
All right. Just wanted to make sure I had my head on straight about that.
Yeah, that's right.
So I would imagine then, if you're flying up to 400 feet, could you give us a rough idea of how much acreage you can generally capture in one photo?
Well, because you're shooting, from what I'm understanding, if you're shooting from the mountain out towards the valley, you're going to get a huge shot.
No, I mean from a bird's eye view.
Yes. You could get, let me just think for a minute. you could probably pull in 10, 15 acres straight down.
Okay. All right. So that sounds like more than enough. If we were to, I mean, again, bigger projects, I'm sure logging operations, for example, that might be a little bit, that might require a composition shot or a compound. What would that
Yes.
be called?
Yeah, yeah.
Where you take multiple pictures and bring
Right.
them into one. But for the average applicant that we're talking about, I think that is that would, one shot could then probably very well cover the area of disturbance.
There's
So
also one other shot, Connor, that you might want to consider, and that is where you fly away from the structure, the home, and you're out in the valley at whatever altitude you want, and you shoot back at the house, and then you see the house and you see the trees in front of it.
So yes, and that would be another great creative way to address the density question, because a large part of it is not just about the area of disturbance, but also putting some sort of, for lack of a better word, importance on what part of that area of disturbance faces the canopy, faces the valley.
Exactly.
And so that's what we really want to give deference to, is preserving that area. The idea being, what I would, and maybe this is something I could follow up with you about in the future, or you might be interested in giving us a general quotation on, but the idea that we could come to you, especially for these scenic overlay projects where there is, we do want to see the area of disturbance, we do want to see the density coverage, especially as it pertains to the canopy in the valley. But as I think about ways in which touching up the photos afterwards, some sort of marking and detail
Yes.
could become useful, is for us to have, and tell me if this is something you could offer, a way to create a based on maybe a map we provide you of the project's area of disturbance. You delineate that in the photo, and perhaps, for lack of a better, let's say you have a big blue circle that roughly covers your area of disturbance, and then you can maybe on part of the radius or outer edge of the circle mark it a different color where it faces the valley, where it faces the canopy.
Yeah.
The idea being that then we come back with that information to the entire board. We have a much clearer, more precise picture of what things look like going into it. And then we do it again at the end of the project, so we can really quantify everything that happened. But more importantly, before that, give the applicant a very, very fine line to walk in terms of making them understand, like, before you think about cutting down, this, red radius of trees right here, which is, in your area of disturbance, but, a thin layer of canopy, perhaps you should scoot that whole project back 20 feet. Things like that to give us options to protect those, the tree line.
Right. Right.
Now, I don't want to take too much more of your time, but that really answers a lot of my questions. I guess my only follow-up would be one of, if we were to send you, perhaps in my capacity at the planning board, I would like to bring it to their attention. If we were to send you a sample application, one where we have a pretty simple or straightforward tree cutting and idea, would you be able to give us a quote of what something like I just described would look like for where we want to buy somewhere between 2 and 4 photos from you, and have you give us marked up copies of probably 2 of them?
That's fine. Yes, we could do that. Another thing we might be able to do, just so because since this is somewhat of a strange technology for some people, as far as understanding, is we could do a mock-up, like maybe on your property, which is a mountain property, and just to demonstrate, I could come over to you. We could do something just to show what,
Yeah.
you know.
I know I would be more than willing to facilitate that. If you, but I'll talk to the board about it. I'll make sure to bounce it off you because, you know, I'm sure, well, I don't want to, I certainly don't want to ask you for anything for free. You're a very talented and and busy person.
So I guess if I were just to, because I make notes as I do as the I guess as a lead of this group. So there's 4 photos we're talking about. So when you give a price estimate, I think it would be 2 before and 2 after, where the 2 before, one, like we're saying, looking down, and one, like David, you had said, is you go out in the valley and you look back at what you see, and that's the before, and then you come back and do it after the project is done, and you look down, and then you go out in the valley and you look at what that side of the house you can see from the valley looks like. So the price estimate you would give us, it would be, you'd be going there 2 times to give us
Of
the same
course.
shot.
And,
But
and not only is it 2 times, but the time of day will have to be determined by where how the house is situated facing the sun. It's obviously don't want to shoot into the sun.
right.
Yeah.
So that it will depend on that.
Yeah. Okay. So and I guess so in tying this back to why this committee is here as a zoning revision committee, then Connor, what'll be of interest, and I think you have a meeting this Thursday, right? Are you still 1st, 3rd, and 5th?
Yes, we are this Thursday.
So cool. So my thought is that what you might do, because any wording, because as we tie back into why this team is here, is because we're making zoning changes. We're proposing changes to the zoning law. So then, Connor, the question for you is going to be, what might we put in the zoning law? And I would think that the words that would go in would be something that says the planning board has the option, you know, for scenic overlay to be doing this kind of thing, because that's where we've seen a lot of problems. So so the wording you want to put in will be of interest, but I would think the word option would be there, because you may not feel like you need to require it all the time, but there's certain houses in the scenic overlay where, you know, there are great you know, egregious acts being done, and they say, oh, it was that way before, that way before. And the thing about it, you can go into Google Map and you can see stuff, but Google Map is only updated how many years? Every 2 years, maybe. So Google Map
And
is really
Hudsonia is even less, is the
yeah.
thing.
So that doesn't really meet the planning board's purposes, because you want real time stuff. So
Yeah,
David, you're going to think about an estimate, right? You didn't give us an
And
estimate.
I have a question. Is the burden of cost on the person with the application or the zoning board?
Yeah.
It would
Person with
be
the application.
yeah, this would be escrowed from the applicant,
Yeah,
or at least that's how I envision it.
that's how I envision it too, because I can tell you, being on the town board, you know, we're tight on the budget. We have a supervisor that rethinks every penny. Why are we spending that penny again? And he's not a quick person to add things. So it'd be escrowed by the applicant. The other thing I will say is that the applicant is also paying for the planner, and he's not cheap. And the applicant, you know, so the applicant also has certain fees. And of course, your building permit's not cheap either, depending on how big your project is. So the applicant is paying a bunch of stuff, and this will be one more thing burdening the applicant. But yeah, and I guess I would want to rethink, you know, how big is the problem? We clearly have problems. This clearly is a problem. But then, do we want to burden every applicant with it? If you know, there's some places you're in the scenic overlay, but nobody can see your house because you're like on a plateau and you're not close to the valley, and you know, nobody's gonna see your house. Where I don't know if you're gonna be as making that, yeah, I don't know if you want to make everybody pay an extra.
Well,
I don't
well,
know how
I
much
think
money you're
that's where
talking
option could come in. But the thing that I want to be certain about is, you know, like I said, it's most egregious in the scenic overlay. That's where we see about it and hear about it the most. But it goes on all over the place. And it's not just about protecting visual integrity. It's about having accountability for the number of trees that get cut down on
Right.
any given project. You know,
Is
have,
there a form that's filled out for the scenic overlay by an applicant?
there is a checkbox, I believe, on the building permit where you list whether or not.
Going into somebody wanting to do something in the scenic overlay, and they come to you with a plan, is there a form they have to fill out? That would be where you would put the option of hiring at the applicant's expense a drone operator to at least take a before and after shot.
Yeah, well, I think that basically to sort of answer that, there is a checklist that is being worked on now for site plan review that did not exist before. And that is and where we introduce this option, I think would be somewhere at that stage, either as a second follow-up visit after initial site plan review, or
Well, you could have it appear in all as an option, and then you say not applicable. You check off. So you have
exactly.
it for everything, and then you check it off if it's not applicable to the small application you're dealing with.
Yeah, and basically, you know, this is going to cover expansions of a certain size, tree removals of a certain size. But like you said, when we get that site plan review checklist together, which if it is in the scenic overlay, would I imagine have its own bullet points, its own addendums to say, like, is it at here? Does it face the canopy? Or just to our discretion, you know, to check a box that says for other reasons.
Yeah, you just say yes, drone photography required, no, not applicable.
Yeah, but that, I guess what I'm getting at though is I could see this pertaining not just to the scenic overlay, because obviously we have logging operations and all types of expansions that go on all over town that, you know, could definitely use a more scrutinous eye at the beginning and end of this procedure. So yes, that is, Ed, I agree. That is definitely the ultimate form this would take. And I'm sure, you know, once we get back with the planning board and me and Dave have a chance to meet up or come up with a sample, an example of what this process may look like, we can have an idea of how standardized it can become, and even the levels to which we might ask him to perform. Like, say, for example, if the drone can fly at, I don't know, let's call it 30 feet high in the air and spin in a circle slow enough to take a video with no blurring on it, so we can get that 360 view and see what the coverage is. You know, like that may be something we do in some cases and something we not do in other cases. Because a yes, no is absolutely something that needs to happen. But even below that, I imagine I can see at least 3 or 4 operations that may or may not be required.
There are times where a panoramic turnaround is very good. You could see everything around. I had 2 points I'd like to bring up, just so you're aware of. One is that the final photographs has a value to the homeowner too, because it's their beautiful home and they're going to have some gorgeous photographs. The other thing is that you need to be aware of is birds of prey can, we have a lot of birds flying around our mountains. And if there are birds of prey, I postpone my flights because they will attack the drone and they can get hurt.
I believe it.
So my policy and any professional's policy is to yield to birds of prey. And that won't be known until you're up there. I always keep an eye out, just so you're aware that sometimes you have to come back another time.
No, absolutely.
I have a basic question, which is, does this impact zoning code, or is it just a planning board process? I mean, I think it's a zoning issue. It's more a planning board process, isn't it?
Well, I think we would need to, in the zoning code, spell out, and I'm sorry, I don't have my copy of it, though I believe it's in the summary, which 260 this is. Sorry, I'm going to try and pull it up. But I think we would need to stipulate that this is something that the planning board has the direct authority to issue as part of an escrow. There is part of the law that tells us that we can defer certain actions to the planner, or even certain issues of a certain scope can have their secret or other things waived. But I think for the explicit purpose of protecting the canopy and the scenic overlay, it would need to be written into the code.
Well, there's section 260-66B, which has to do with the special use permit and how it can be waived. So you could just have a section to that regarding a use of a drone, and that it may be utilized or may be waived. You just stick it into that section there. Of the zoning law.
I actually just pulled up the summary, and yes, that's the one I'm thinking of. Thank you very much, Ed.
And Connor, the drone must be in line, excuse me, in line of sight of the operator at all times. In other words, I have to be able to visually see the drone wherever I am flying.
Got it.
And that can be challenges in certain mountain homes.
Understood. So, for example, if we were to, let's say we have a situation where a property is completely surrounded by trees and maybe a cliff edge on one side, you can fly that thing straight up into the air until it's 400 feet in the air, as long as you can see it, but
Correct.
You can't go outside of the periphery of that.
As long as I can see it, I could fly it out as long as I can see it.
And so that would mean that were we to need to take a picture a picture from the valley, we would need to walk to the edge. Then You're going to put that thing down, up, out, and back.
And fly it out from a cliff edge, correct.
Yeah, understood. Thank you.
Okay. So I guess a couple of things, because I was on the planning board and I used to do site visits, and also I'm a homeowner and I've had to get building permits for things. And, you know, I know that we do need to be sensitive to people of all the costs that go into doing building. So, and I guess, I don't know, I mean, I'm just going to say this is who I am, how I am. I say what's on my mind. Is it really can't be setting up something that's a monopoly for the homeowner. So I don't know, besides David, I mean, David can give us an idea of what he would charge, but we certainly need to be able to give homeowners an option. If we only have one supplier of services, then it's kind of a monopoly.
Well,
so,
no, we're not. David is just consulting us now. I think he would be an excellent candidate for any
me too.
option. But that being said, you know, this could go out to bid. This could be a standard.
And it should. My advice is just make sure you're getting a licensed drone pilot. Another suggestion would be
a licensed what do you say? A licensed
drone pilot by the FAA.
Okay.
You have to have a licensed pilot to do this work. You can't have somebody's kid.
But so you say pilot, it does have to specifically be a drone pilot license, not just a pilot license like you can do an airplane. Like it has to be a drone pilot.
The Federal Aviation Association has a licensing process and testing specifically for drones.
Okay.
And your pilot must be FAA approved.
Okay.
I would suggest also that whoever you use, that you give a courtesy mailing, email, however you choose to do it, to the neighboring properties so that they know that on a certain day at a certain time, there's a drone that's focused on one property, not theirs, just so they know what's going on and they're not calling police and having a situation. It's good to preempt that.
Yeah, and that's something I'm pretty sure we have the capacity to easily do from the town offices. We do the same thing we do give notice for contiguous neighbors for public hearings. So it's pretty reasonable to assume we could do the same thing for a drone date.
Beautiful. Is there any other questions you need from me?
Not for you. I just have a question. I'm back to the, how would you language this in the zoning code? I'm not
Well,
quite clear what you would want to say that would be something that is zoning specific. Or zoning.
basically yeah, I'm sorry, Ed, go ahead.
Oh, you go to section 260-76 of the zoning law and you see where there's language, there's a couple of paragraphs there that you could figure out how to place into it a legal paragraph or two about the use of drones in the scenic overlay. This is we're talking, in this case, we're talking about the scenic overlay. He may want to expand it to logging operations. So
I guess, to me, putting technology language in a law is kind of not appropriate. It's, if you want a video, then call it a video, but saying drone is a particular technology, which may be superseded by other technologies sometime in the future. I'm just, the concept I get, the idea of saying how to achieve that concept, to me, is not necessarily the kind of language we want to use. If the desire is to have a before and after image for a scenic overlay project and a before and after image for a logging project, that's language I understand.
Well,
and you can use aerial photography.
You could use aerial photography,
right.
aerial photographs.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
And
if I could, and I do plan on getting in. I feel like we can get into the weeds about that. That was my plan, was to use the specific words, aerial photography and aerial photographs and such, to catalog the area of disturbance and the density of coverage. And we don't have to specifically use the word drone, but the reality is that as of now, like you said, it could become superseded by another technology, but we're not going to hire small airplanes to go and do this. Right now, this is the preeminent, easiest, and most comprehensive way, probably the most affordable way to get these photographs.
I'm not saying it isn't, Connor. I'm just saying that I think the language has to be focused on what the desired outcome is, which is a before and after image.
Absolutely.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah, I think that's good. I think Jeff, I think you got a good point. And Connor, I think you're going to go off and, I think we've had an excellent conversation here. And I know, Connor, you've got the to-do, and thank you for signing up for this section of of our to-do list. You'll go away and give it some thought, and you'll bring something back, and we'll look at it and we'll tweak it. And,
That's the plan. We'll be everything. I'm going to be bouncing this next stuff. We've been, Ed, we've all been talking a lot about coming up with language over the last couple months. God, it's been a while, hasn't it? Actually, time flies when we're in a sharing doom. But I feel like now I have a lot more information to come up with language. I feel very comfortable about the aerial photography verbiage we've been kicking around. But I also want to just talk to the planning board really quickly, so that we can start to zero in on what this process will look like. Because, we want to make sure that when Dave does do his work, that it's safe, it's legal, and it's as expedient as possible for his time and the time and cost to the applicant. And so,
and if you have like a sample of what you're looking for, you could even leave it burdened to the applicant to say, here's what we need, and let them find their pilot or however they want to do it.
Well, and I think the planning board, if I were on the planning board, I would want to know who they're choosing reputable, because anyway, I would want to, like David, if it were you, I would know that you are objective, right? And who knows, if we say, in some cases, it would be nice to have a list of, these are the approved by the town of Woodstock. I think it's got to be a choice, not a monopoly, but these are the approved by the town of Woodstock, because I would be concerned if anybody went off and got their buddy to go doctor up a photo.
Yeah, and also
say, here's really what it looked like. Yeah.
And also be aware of your liability. And I can't answer what that is, but I know, like, when I operate with liability insurance. And if someone's flying a drone and God forbid, it crashes into the person's window,
Right.
Who gets sued? Do you get sued? Does the town get sued? You know, so just be that the things you want to look for with whoever you use is that they are FAA certified, that they are insured, you know, for liability insurance, and that they're reputable. That's all.
Yeah, and just at a glance, you know, taking that into consideration, if we look at the at 26066 section D and E, the prohibition of development along and or projecting above ridge lines and the discouragement of visually prominent locations, whereas E, the encouragement of natural buffers and other vegetative screenings between land uses, developed area, etc. Even if we could add in there into one of those sections, or add a new line H to say, you know, we can have the authority to request aerial photography and photography of density coverage from a legally licensed operator slash photographer. And that's just firing from the hip there. I'm sure we can zero in on it, but the idea being that we want to, of course, make sure that we are being sensitive to, you know, evolving technology, but also making sure that we set the standard there that, yes, this is a licensed and insured party to take that liability off of the town, off of the board.
Right. Good.
Yeah. Excellent. So David, very nice to meet you.
Thank you.
I know where to come if I need drone photography, because you clearly know what you're doing. So
he does so much more too. He's a very multi-talented person.
Yeah. Well, there you go. But it's nice that it's nice that we've got, you know, already know somebody we can turn to for getting this done. So I think.
And if you have any other questions, feel free to ask.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Dave. I'll be sure to reach out after I've spoken to the planning board, and we'll set something up.
Good. Have a good night, everyone.
See ya.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us. So, okay. So I did pass out the agenda. Someday I'll get these things out days in advance, and as it is, I got it out in an hour in advance. So we still do need to adopt our agenda, and I don't know if Ashley will let me share my screen. Oh, look at that. There we go. I will share my whole screen, and I will go pull up the agenda in case you don't have it. So the agenda that we have is open the meeting, which we did, adopt the agenda, which is this thing here. David Lax, we've already talked about that. I did want to talk about Andrew Campanelli's presentation. Connor and I attended, and then future meeting plans, and then of course adjourn. So I'll make a motion to accept the agenda. Do I have a second?
So moved.
Cool.
Or
Connor,
second, rather.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. I also sent out the minutes, which will go to the minutes. And there they are, fitted onto one page this time. That's always the goal.
I did read those at the beginning. I moved to adopt the minutes as presented.
Okay, does anybody want to second that?
I'll second it.
Yay, Ed. All in favor of approving? Aye.
Aye.
Right.
Okay, I didn't hear anybody say nay, so there you go. Okay, so those are the minutes. We'll go back to the agenda, and we might actually finish in an hour tonight, which is always the goal. Okay, so Connor and I both attended the meeting with Andrew Campanelli. I think I haven't yet. So Steve Romine sent a link and said, if you can get this from the document, great. I didn't know how to get it from the document. I didn't see an attachment. So I sent him another email saying, how do I get this? So when I get a link, yeah, okay. So when I get a link, I'll let people know. It ran probably an hour and 45 minutes. So it kind of ran for a bit. So I do plan to make summary notes. I've kind of put summary notes here, but in case people don't have the whole hour and whatever. And the good news is I am taking vacation from my day job over the next 2 weeks. So it's my hope to catch up on a couple of things like zoning revision committee, some documentation. I wanted to give some more detailed documentation of different meetings we've had. And it's my thought, without having to do my day job during the day, I can kind of catch up. So one of the things is trying to pull together a bullet point list of what was covered. But the main thing, and let me go, and then Connor can jump in. But the main thing that I got out of Andrew Campanelli's presentation was, first of all, I thought he was very grounded. But that, I mean, he was not out in left field. He was not saying we're going to save the earth, we're not going to save the planet, and we're not going to save 5G, oh, by the way, because he came right out and said, you can't put an ordinance in place that says you can't have 5G. So he seemed very grounded in what you can and can't do and very knowledgeable. I thought he was very good. So he recommended, there are some zoning law recommendations that he made to say things like, we're not going to allow infrastructure for telecommunications that affects the safety of our residents, that affects the aesthetics value, that affects the property value. He did say there are some concrete things we can talk about that we're not going to allow. Sure, you can do your telecommunications infrastructure, but in our town, we're not going to let you do it where you impact safety. We're not going to let you do it where you impact aesthetics value. We're not going to let you do it where it impacts property value. So there may have been more stuff. That's what I did from memory. That's why I wanted to hear the recording again and fill in my notes. But I thought he had a finite list of places for us to focus on, and I thought they made sense. He also made the point that as a town, we need to train the planning board, because he also is very good at explaining what should you look for when you get an application. Like they'll say, oh, there's gaps in service, we have to do that. Okay, show me your data. That was his point. We can say, show me your data. Show me how many drop calls we had in the center of town. You got to put your tower right in the center of town. How many drop calls did you have in the center of town? If you didn't have any drop calls, where's your proof you have a gap of service? So we should train the planning board to ask about gaps in service. Don't just accept that they have a gap. Get them to explain it. They also
just to interject really quickly on that, the thing that I had brought up, and I think we need to also get some more information on, is not because yes, we need to make sure the planning board is asking the right questions, no doubt about it, but also having our own consultation, perhaps even if it's just once as a preliminary consultation, to look at coverage density on, say, the weekends. The places that are going to have the most activity are probably in the center of town, but you may not, we may be surprised to find out that, you know, certain swimming holes, certain hiking trails, I don't know, you know, areas
right.
of scenic integrity that may be targets for that type of development. And if we look at that information, we may be able to more precisely, you know, decide, okay, this is what we need to be prepared for. Because like you said, he said there's no stopping this, but you can control how it becomes implemented.
Exactly. And very, very good point. Very good point. Yes. Right. Exactly.
Dave Menzies has viewed this. He filled me in on his viewing of it. So there is a way of looking at this or listening to this presentation, because Dave has done it. He filled me in on it. So we are working on language for the Woodstock zoning law on telecommunications is pretty complicated. So we need, if we're going to bring in the aesthetic, and the thing that will keep 5G out of town is that it needs so many antennae, and we can use aesthetics and zoning districts and historic zoning districts, and then we can bias the town toward implementation of hardwired service. And then we can figure out ways of getting grants and spreading hard wire throughout the town. We will solve the 5G problem in good part.
Right. Okay. So, and let me just finish my notes here, and then we'll move on. So the other point that he did make about ways that the companies give you the wrong information is he said they'll say, oh yeah, we meet the limits. And you need to ask things like, do they meet the general population exposure limit? Because that's the most stringent. So the other thing that we may want to consider for the zoning law or training the planning board is to make sure they know to ask about the general population exposure limit. Because if they say, oh yeah, we meet limits, they might have not met that one, but if you weren't smart enough to ask, you won't know. So that's another thing. Confirming distance claims. They talked about how they might claim, oh, people aren't going to get within within like 100 feet of this, but yet maybe they do. And he used the bell tower example. Well, the bell tower of a church, we'll put it there. Nobody is within, 40 feet of that. Well, maybe they are if there are tours to the bell tower. The bell tower has to be serviced once a week. Maybe they will be. So you have to make sure you look through what they tell you and use your own judgment to see whether it's accurate, and then get them to explain why they can't put their infrastructure like in the woods rather than next to someone's house. Maybe we don't want it in the woods because that's aesthetic, but on the other hand, you don't want it by somebody's bedroom either. So they may be motivated to put their infrastructure right on Main Street because they can get to Main Street, but we might not want it right on Main Street because it's near too many people. We might want it out in the boonies or in the middle of a field. So there are things that can go in the zoning law to, as Connor says, to control the implementation. And these are things we can think about. And I will pull together some notes. And I appreciate that David's already listened to it. And Ed, you could as well. I thought he was very good. But anyway, he does charge $8,500 to work with municipalities. They would offer, he's offering to write your zoning law for you. I would never want to do that. Ed, you and David have agreed to step up to it. And I would never bring in a third party if you all didn't want it. If you all wanted his help, Steve Romine says he's got to volunteer to pay the $8,500, but I would never bring in an expert. You're my expert, Ed. So if you wanted it, I'd say, yeah, let's go for it. If you don't want it, I would never say do it. So it would really
David and I want to do is to take the current telecommunications section of the zoning law and add to it and mutate it and change it so that it still will not be liable to be sued, but still has legal legs, and that tends to, I am inclined to believe that 5G, as recently came out in Denmark, which is banning it, is could possibly, because of its frequency, have an impact on human health. We can't use that in our zoning law, but we can use it while we write a zoning law that protects our town people against the possible negative impact of this.
Yeah.
And 4G, one thing I've learned I've been watching lots and lots and lots of videos, is that 4G is pretty good. They've ironed out many of the kinks in 4G. And it is, you can get Netflix and instant telephones, and 5G, the speed of 5G is really not that much faster. It's only if you're in an orchestra and you want to do a concert with instrumentalists in 50 different countries, then maybe 5G would be useful. But for regular business and
that being said too, Ed, like it's all wireless. So the idea, the capacity of fiber optics is so much greater than what you could even achieve on 5G in the first place. But again, that's all dependent on even a larger network being made available. Before I lose it though, I also wanted to add, one of the things he brought up was that, these things, and I don't know if this is something you, Ed, could work with, but these antennas tend to kind of get packaged together when they apply. So they're going to try to have us assess or approve, a gang of antennas rather than one at a time. And while I am not thrilled at the idea of approving antennas individually, I think doing that would certainly allow us to, because again, my concern isn't so much that 5G is coming, so much as just that we don't get bamboozled with a bunch of bad-looking cell towers that are outside of people's windows. If we can't do them one at a time, that does sort of take away from our efforts.
I hadn't heard about the concept of licensing individual antennae, because these 5G antennas are very small. Their distance that they cover are very limited compared to 4G.
I think it's like 300 feet or something like that.
There'll be oodles of 5G antennae. And if you force them to get permits for each individual antennae, that might slow down the.
Oh, it would slow it down
That's
a
the goal.
lot.
I think that's the goal. But that's a good point, Connor. That is an option. Is our town could require each antenna get approved as opposed to the bundle, because if you have a bundle of 300, you know, maybe some of them are where you don't want them to be, but if you had them approved one at a time, it would definitely slow things down. He also said, Andrew also indicated that, you know, you got these companies, he had a couple things, that when the company comes in, the infrastructure company just wants to go in, they want to be the first one to come in and put all the infrastructure up. Because then when the carrier comes in later, this isn't the carrier asking to do this. This is the infrastructure company looking to do this, so that now they've got the infrastructure. So now the carrier can rent from them. So
exactly.
the infrastructure
so they
company,
can charge rent. Yeah.
Right. So the
Wanna be
infrastructure company
landlords.
wants to be the first one in here, because then the carrier will use their poles. So that was like an interesting point. But it's our choice whether our zoning law requires that each antenna get approved individually, which would slow us down. The other thing Andrew said is the more onerous a town's zoning law is with this, these infrastructure people will go where it's easy. So it's like, yeah, well, Woodstock's too difficult, so let's go over to, you know, Hurley. So if we have the right laws in place and they're legal, they hold water. Now, the other thing he said was that the town, this is according to Andrew, that the town, if we hold up some of these telecommunications things, and our zoning law says you can't do it, and well, maybe a higher court would find that you can, that all that will happen is we will have to pay our lawyer to fight our case. That the way the law is, according to this lawyer, Andrew Campanelli, that Woodstock is not going to have to pay damages. We're not going to have to pay for the other party's lawyer, that it's just the way the FAA rules are, and the FAA takes these cases very quickly, so we're not going to have some long drawn out court case, because they don't draw these court cases out. So he is saying that we don't need to be too much of a nervous Nelly, because our exposure here is only the cost of our lawyer if we go to court. It's not some big damages claim. So that was the other thing that he did say.
Yeah, we really need to check out that assertion, though, because, you know, the telecommunications law is really weighted on the side of the telecommunications industry.
Right.
So yeah. You know, it might be true, but we need to, before we leap ahead and take that as truth, we need to check that out. I don't know who we would ask, but.
Well, I know you're going to be careful anyway. I know we're not planning to put together laws. We're not planning to, we don't have any goal of putting together laws that won't hold water, but he did make that point. So.
Well, because when the town did the original telecommunications law, it was very, very careful, and it spent a lot of time working on language, and we have to do the same. We can't just you know, we're all environmentalists, but you can't just weigh in with language of a law that can't be enforced. That's what we faced when we wrote the law in 1989. You have to write a law that holds up, because.
Correct. Absolutely agreed. Okay. So should we, anything else on this topic, or should we move on to future meeting plans? Okay.
Move on.
Yay. Okay. So we know our August 10th meeting is canceled. So yay, we get a meeting off in the summer. So I put on August 27th that we'll just talk about what Ed and David have so far for telecommunications. I know Ed is not promised to be done by then, because he's explained it's a lot of pages to look through, and as he's talking about now, being very careful, but I thought it might make sense for us to loop around and talk then about that. I've got, you know, sometime we'll talk about the Hamlet area stuff. And then go through the action plan document. Now, I got an email from Michael. We haven't seen Michael at several meetings. And Michael did send me an email today. A couple of things. One is he hasn't really been here. Another is he's on the zoning revision committee, and Maria Mendoza has just stepped down, and she was the chair. I think Michael says he's the vice chair. Jeff would know better than me.
Yeah.
What was that, Jeff?
Yes, he is the vice chair.
Yeah. So he has indicated his time is being focused there, and he very likely will send an email to Bill McKenna coming off this committee. Whether or not he asks for somebody, which is kind of odd, because Jeff, you're still an alternate on the ZBA, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So Michael was saying, well, I'll see if I can find someone from the ZBA to be on this committee, but you're on the ZBA and you're here. So I'm personally happy having 5 of us. I appreciate each one of you, and each one of you is interested and contributing and part of the idea think tank. And I think we have a strong 5-some. I'm not pushing to get a 6th member if Michael comes off, but I don't know if anybody has any opinions, but I think we have a strong 5-some right here. So I'm willing to go with it if he comes off and just say, hey, this is us, and that's fine. But I just thought I'd share that. So we'll just talk on August 27th about, we'll just take a fresh look at where we are with what we've already covered. I don't think we need to open up other items that we haven't opened up yet, because we've got a lot opened up, that it would be nice to, I think, wrap together some zoning laws and some language and work, massage things and have something we want to put forward. And while things are going through a review process, we can be diving into the other items that we haven't really totally embraced yet. So that's kind of my thoughts. So I didn't think we were going to have any speakers for August 27th. We'll just see where we are in different areas. And O'Connor, you may have something to talk about because you will have given thought to the language of the scenic overlay. Connor and I are going to a meeting. And so is Jeff. So the 3 of us are going to the housing meeting.
I'm going August 26th. I know you had raised a preliminary sort of subcommittee suggestion, if I remember correctly, but I didn't hear back about what time it was.
Well, I thought I had texted you August 17th. So we at August 17th, and you said 6 o'clock was the earliest you could make it. So August 17th, Connor, Jeff, and I will be in a meeting, if we all remember. I meant to put that on the agenda to talk about that. So let me just write that in my notes to make sure I get it. So August 17th at 6 o'clock, it's Connor, Jeff, and me to meet with housing. And so you would have been on emails that I sent. You might not have seen it, and I'm not perfect at my emails either. So anyway, so we may have more news.
Do we know what time it is? Because that was the only thing I didn't know. I'm definitely down to go, but if it's before 6 o'clock, I'm either going to be late or I won't be able to make it.
Yeah, I had said 6, so I expect it's going to be set up for 6 o'clock. So and there's Ashley. Ashley, are you within hearing range, yeah. Ashley? Okay, so you will at some point be sending an email out with the invitation, because I know I've given you the full list of people, and with the invitation to be August 17th at 6 o'clock. So we're locked in. As I recall, Ashley, you said we're locked in for that.
Yes, I have you August 17th, 6 o'clock.
Yep. So Connor, we're good. We're
very good.
We aim to please here, Connor. I know you say you're available. We want you as part. We want you. Your presence is important. So
thank you.
We pick a time that works for you. So and everybody, if we can get one. But anyway, that's so yeah. So that's coming up. So I think what we'll just do on August 27th is just kind of regroup a little bit, see where we are on all these things we started, and before we start opening up new stuff, just kind of see where we are. Things we've started, and see when we think we might get some language together so that we can bring something together. So that's kind of my thought for the future. Anything else? Any comments anybody has?
Nope.
How you all feeling?
Hot.
Very hot.
There you go. Yeah, I have AC, and it doesn't really do the job. That's all I can say. AC and fans. Between AC and fans, we're surviving.
Very good.
Yeah. All right. Anything else before we close? So do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
So, second.
Oh, I heard Ed. I heard Connor. And all in favor?
Aye.
So we're adjourned basically 7:30. So thank
Very
you
nice.
very much, everybody. We'll talk to you in kind of a month. Yeah, it will be a month.
Yep, just about. You have a good one, you guys.
All right.
Yep.
Good meeting.
Well.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye.